So, yeah, it's a huge business in our region. And then I also am the director of sales for Hilton Garden.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely be going around.
Wonderful. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you.
You too.
Okay, we are joined now by Rob Sexton from Hunting Works for PA. Rob, welcome to Crawford County Outdoors.
Glad to be here.
Juanita Hampton.
How do you do?
Seems
Hi.
like we've talked about Crawford County Outdoors an awful lot over the years.
I know. Isn't it wonderful?
Yeah, well, tell us how this connection came up, and I'm going to ask you in a second, Rob, to explain what Hunting Works PA is. But
sure.
How about if you start?
Well, it started off with an email, actually. I met Rob through an email, which he put out to all the tourist promotion agencies across the state of Pennsylvania. And there's about 49 of us, and as soon as I saw it, Hunting Works for PA, I go, that fits Crawford County so well. You know, as you know, with our 25,595 acres of state game lands, and with our 2 wildlife management units, it was a perfect fit for what we have here in Crawford County. And then started emailing. And then we started talking about the Great Lakes region, not just Crawford County, but Erie, Crawford, Venango, and Mercer counties. So we decided, after talking with Rob, we had a meeting, a conference call and a meeting here in Crawford County to become the regional setting for Rob Sexton to introduce Hunting Works for PA.
Well, that's a good handoff, Rob. Tell us what it is.
Well, Hunting Works for Pennsylvania is basically a coalition of small businesses, travel and tourism bureaus like Juanita's organization, and our sole purpose is to spread the word about the economic impact of hunting, how important hunting is not just to the culture of Pennsylvania, but also what it provides for rural economies, what it provides for small businesses, and just frankly, just how big of a driver, an economic driver it is to the state.
We're not just talking about a few dollars. I read some of the information you sent out. We're talking $1 billion in Pennsylvania that hunters spend every year on things like their supplies, their dinner, getting gas to get to where they're going to, et cetera, et cetera. And that translates into other jobs for other people as it kind of spreads on down through the... Talk about that for a little bit.
Well, that's exactly right. In fact, hunting accounts for 15,000 jobs in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
And we talk about the ripple effect of hunting. In other words, I spend my money at the local rod and gun club, and then that person who works there is able to spend money on other items that are unrelated to hunting. Hunting is a $1.6 billion economic driver in the state of Pennsylvania.
In Crawford County, we're kind of a destination for hunters. I mean, it's well known for many things, whitetails and waterfowl and many other things, turkeys. So folks maybe have camps in the area that they come, and so they spend their money and go back home. And
exactly.
What a good thing for our local businesses.
Exactly. And they look for restaurants. You can't hunt 24/7. So they look for the restaurants. They look for overnight accommodations. They look if their equipment breaks, or they look for guns and shells. And Crawford County is very blessed with all those here. And so it was just a perfect fit, and we were so excited at the Visitors Bureau level to look at how Hunting Works for PA not only will make us state attention, but national attention, because we're working with Hunting Works for PA.
Well, so someone's out there, and maybe this this concept is new to them, or Robert. Give us the big picture. What kind of things would you like a little thing you want in the back of somebody's mind?
Well, I'd say it's a two-way street. From the point of view of a business, a business has, you're going to see this little logo, Hunting Works for Pennsylvania, all over the place. Okay. When a hunter comes to Crawford County, he sees the local diner has this in their window. That's a place that wants hunters to be there. We would call it like the good housekeeping seal of approval for a hunter. They want us here in Crawford County. Yes. And Juanita and the Travel and Tourism Bureau here has really rolled out the red carpet for us and made it clear that hunters are welcome in Crawford County. From the other side of the street, it's vitally important that whether it's the elected officials, whether it's the newspapers, whether it's anybody that has anything to do with how hunting is portrayed, that they understand they're not just impacting recreationalists, but they're impacting small businesses, gas stations, hotels like the one we're in today.
Exactly.
The diners, the small shops, not just the great big, the Cabela's and the Bass Pro Shops, but really everybody. What happens to hunting is jobs and economy here in Pennsylvania, and it needs to be treated just as any other major economic driver in the state.
I get really excited when I see kids going out for the first time and women joining the sport maybe that hadn't been involved before and so on. Talk about that for a second, if you would.
Well, the lifeblood for hunting, of course, is getting new people involved. And some of the most exciting things going on in hunting right now are the efforts to get women involved in hunting, efforts to get young people involved in hunting. The average hunter in their lifetime will spend $17,000 on hunting. And you start multiplying that times 1 million hunters in the state of Pennsylvania, it's big business.
Yes.
Well, Rob, thanks for being here, and thanks for coming on Crawford County Outdoors with us
Oh,
here,
glad to be
Juanita.
here.
Thanks for everything that you're doing.
Thanks for having us, Dwayne.
Chatting.
Sure.
That sounds good.
Pleasure to meet you.
Oh, okay, that's beautiful.
Yes. I know, it's so funny because
So what all do you do? Like, what is this?
I'm John Oliver's counterpart.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
So, and I'm president of the Great Lakes region this year.
It's such a
last couple of years.
pleasure meeting
I was
you.
wondering
Oh,
something.
you too, because we work with Scott a lot.
Yeah.
We're working with the,
With our tour and travel manager, Danielle, maybe, and how
Yeah.
about,
Well, we
yeah.
could have
No,
to
but
buy
until
entire
they send me an email.
because we're doing a lot of that.
Oh, okay.
So, Jeremy,
We got Juanita.
I'm looking there.
Yeah, I'm Megan. Tanya, we had to switch of plans, so
that's
I'm
okay.
in her spot.
I've gone.
Yes, thank you for having me.
we have cookies and
Hi, how are you? Yes, where's my buddy? Girls will look up.
Camp that way.
How are you? Good, good. Another hectic day. Here, there, and everywhere. It's good though. It's really good. Not a ton. I do, I tend to, well, I'd say as many next week as every day. So,
very, very beneficial. Just to tell you how it has kind of all started, Rob Sexton is with Hunting Works for PA State Project Initiative. And when I first saw his email, he sent it out to all the tourist promotion agencies across the state of Pennsylvania. And of course, hunting in Crawford County and the region, which is Erie, Crawford, Venango, and Mercer County, as part of the Great Lakes region. Crawford County alone has 25,595 acres of state game lands. And we have 2 wildlife management units. So when I heard that Hunting Works for PA is going to start this whole initiative, it was just a no-brainer. And then after that, Rob, I had talked to him emails. Then we got the Great Lakes region involved. And Emily Beck is here from Erie County, and John Phillips is from the Oil Heritage region. And so we decided to have a conference call with Rob. And out of that came, well, let's do a regional meeting, because Rob's going to give you some stats that are just staggering of how much hunting does really benefit all of us. And but before I get Rob up here, I think it's important to know who's here. So, because already there's networking going on, so which is really cool. And so, John, let's start with you.
My name is John Crooks. I'm a freelance outdoor writer, and I usually write for the Meadville Tribune.
Darrell Black, freelance outdoor writer. I do the Northwest Pennsylvania Fishing Report.
Pennsylvania's Great Lakes region.
Fourth Pennsylvania Great Lakes.
She's a tough one. She's a tough one. Emily Beck.
I'm Emily Beck with Visit Erie.
I'm John Phillips with the Old Region Alliance of Business Industry and Tourism.
Karen.
And Karen Watson, my husband Eric and I own Scattergun Reserve, hunting reserve, sporting place, course, and 5-stand, and we call ourselves a outdoor sporting reserve and conference center.
Nice.
We're so lucky.
Vicki Leap with Senator Bob Robin's office.
And Megan Bush with Representative Michelle Brooks' office.
Rich Weber from Erie Sports Store. We do sell hunting equipment, but we want to sell more.
Very cool.
I'm Lori Wolfslayer with Scott Enterprises, and we're a hospitality company headquartered in Erie, and we have several hotels and restaurants and water park and ski resort and you name it. So I'm happy to be here.
Kevin Blair with Pontoon State Park.
And Harry Leslie at Presque Isle State Park.
As I said, thank you so much. Now, if you see somebody you would like to exchange cards or anything, please network also. And now it'll be my pleasure to introduce you to Rob Sexton with Hunting Works for PA.
All right, well, thank you, Juanita. Guys, I appreciate you taking time out on a Friday afternoon to come hear about something that you probably don't really know anything it's my pleasure to be able to come and introduce you to Hunting Works for Pennsylvania, shed some light on it, but I want to be a little bit interactive. And if you have questions as we go along or something you want to get out that you think we can elaborate a little more on, I encourage you to just go ahead and interrupt me. I don't mind it one bit. I do apologize for the extension cord across the room. We had a little technical glitch with the projector up on the ceiling and had to change our setup just a little bit. But anyway, it's my pleasure to introduce Hunting Works for Pennsylvania to you. A lot of folks, and there are folks in this room who have direct ties with what I'll call the hunting community or the hunting industry. Folks from public agencies, folks from outdoor media, guys who are in the sporting goods business. We're going to talk a little bit about it from that angle, but most of what I'm going to talk about today is about hunting as a business itself, hunting as an economic driver, hunting in terms of how the entire state ought to look at hunting. Hunting Works for Pennsylvania is part of an overall national initiative called Hunting Works for America. And the entire purpose behind it is to bring attention to just how big a deal that hunting is to jobs, to the economy, to tourism, to not just rural areas, which we often stress, but all areas. And whereas at this time of year, hunting season, you typically hear the stories about how many hunters there are. We might hear about who got the big buck, or maybe who had an accident, or who trespassed, or there's all these stories. They're all about the recreational side of hunting. It's not very often that we actually talk about hunting itself as an economic driver. If a guy on the Pittsburgh Steelers falls and breaks his knee, it makes news for 3 days. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are tiny economically compared to the hunting economy in Pennsylvania. And that's the kind of attention that our coalition is all about. What we are is a coalition of small businesses, major businesses, travel and tourism agencies, some sportsmen's clubs, a few elected officials, but really the nexus of this whole thing is businesses. This is all about getting together to educate folks about business. A lot of folks are asking me, what's your purpose? They keep thinking on the other end of this, there's going to be a bill passed, or we're going to introduce some sort of major constitutional amendment or something. That's not what we're driving at all. But here's what we are driving about. There are lots of discussions that go on. Some of them in Harrisburg, some of them in city councils, some of them at the county level, some of them in the media, where they will discuss doing things that impact hunting. It could be a bill before the legislature. It could be something that impacts land use and people's access to use land. It could be the cost, driving up the cost of doing business for hunters and that sort of thing. Usually when those things are discussed, the only discussion is about should we do it and do hunters get upset? But what we really ought to be talking about is what's this do to our economy? What does this do to business? How does it impact people who make a living? And that's what Hunting Works for Pennsylvania is all about. Our mission, there's not some hidden agenda at the end that says we want to introduce a bill. We want the conversation every time hunting is brought up in any way to say, hold it, before we go any farther with this discussion about this concept, what's this going to do to the economy that's produced by hunters? Because we don't want to mess with that here. And the question would be, why don't you want to mess with it here? And I want to talk to you about that. Okay, well, I kind of got ahead of myself. That just kind of gives you an idea of who we are and what our purpose is. This is just a cross-section of the different categories of folks who are part of Hunting Works for Pennsylvania. We launched in March. I am the person who was tasked with recruiting the members of Hunting Works for Pennsylvania. It's how I met Juanita and John and Emily. And the other, I think right now, 110 members of Hunting Works for Pennsylvania across 39 counties. I am not from Pennsylvania. I'm actually from Ohio, and I do this kind of work.
Throw him out.
Maybe you'll move here.
Maybe so. But it was my job to recruit the businesses who would become a part of this, and also to find the folks who would chair and lead this effort. So I'm going to introduce you to our co-chairs as we go, and they're the folks who actually drive this effort. This is the information I talked about jobs. Here's some stats for you. You hear a lot in the media about this time of year. There's 1 million hunters, a little bit shy of 1 million hunters, to be honest with you. There's 1 million hunters in Pennsylvania. Those hunters spend $1,200 per year on hunting, which is just shy of $1 billion a year that they spend. $1 billion that they spend. I'm going to skip from here down to here for a minute, because the net impact of hunting in Pennsylvania is $1.6 billion per year. Now you might say, well, how do you get from $1 billion to $1.6 billion? Hunting causes an impact in the economy. If you're a hunter and you go into a town and you buy a tank of gas, there's people working at that gas station that you help employ. When you go into a restaurant, there's people working there that you help employ. That ripple effect of the money that they spend produces a $1.6 billion impact. Now you might say, where do such stats come from? Well, this all starts with a whole survey of outdoor recreation across the entire country. It's a project of the U.S. Census Bureau and the U.S. Department of Interior Fish and Wildlife Service. From there, they contract with an economic, statistician, person who's a whole lot smarter than me, to get down to what are the economic numbers behind participation, and they break it down by state. It's been done every 5 years, probably going on 30 now, so these numbers are measured across the years as something you can measure consistently. So $1.6 billion a year, which would dwarf most industries that are in the state. A couple other things, 15,000 jobs are owed to the fact that hunting exists and thrives the way it does in Pennsylvania. $529 million in salaries and wages generated by hunting. We tend to think about, okay, you're talking about people who work at Cabela's or somebody who works at the local gun store. But as I said, you're really talking about folks who work in hotels and folks who work in gas stations and convenience stores and grocery stores and right on down the line. Owe it to hunting. $121 million in state and local taxes. Why do we keep driving these stats the way we do and pound on them? Because hunting's big business. As folks who are in business, especially in the Travel and Tourism Bureau or the Chambers of Commerce, you have meetings like this and hotels like this, and folks tell you how big their businesses are. There just aren't very many that can save $1.6 billion a year. We want to tell that story. Our mission is to build a coalition so big that when Hunting Works for Pennsylvania speaks out about something, that, oh my gosh, that's 150 businesses, that's 200 businesses, that's a whole lot of people who believe the same thing. So let's talk about local. When we did our first conference call, I should have guessed this ahead of time, but Emily and John and Juanita asked, how big a deal is hunting in this area? And so, they asked me if I would stats. I really thought these were stats that my folks would be able to come up with like that. But how long ago did we talk? A couple months, right? Yeah. So we had to do some research to dig. But I've got some numbers for you, just so you know what hunting means to this area. Okay, so you can see the sheer number of hunters. So here you go. Crawford County, a little over 15,000 hunters generate $18 million a year in expenditures. That's just what they spend. Just what they spend. That's not the ripple effect number. They spend $18 million a year. The average hunter in their lifetime will spend $17,000 in their lifetime on hunting. And so for Crawford County, that's $260 million in economic impact just from what they spend. Erie County, that's $30 million a year. I realize that boating and fishing are obviously huge because you're sitting right there on the lake, but $30 million a year is not chicken scratch. It's actually pretty good numbers. And the lifetime number, $431 million in the lifetime of those hunters. Mercer County, with their just shy of 15,000 hunters, $17 million a year, $242 million in their lifetime. Venango County, a little smaller than I was expecting, to be honest with you, but just shy of 8,500 hunters generating $10 million in expenditures every year.
Now, these are folks that purchased their license in the county.
That's right.
Okay, so that doesn't take into effect if somebody buys their license in Allegheny County and travels to Venango County to go hunting.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so you have a whole lot of, you couldn't quantify that, but that's what happens a lot, at least with our area.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to speak to that in just a second.
The reverse is true too, though. If they buy a license in Erie County, they would potentially go out of Erie County.
Oh, absolutely.
And spend it
Oh,
out.
yeah, that's what I mean. There's a lot of crossover.
Which is one of the reasons it took me so long to get you numbers.
Right.
Because basically what they were all asking me was, how big a deal is hunting in my county? Well, I started asking guys, and how about the people who leave? How about the people who come? And in the end, you got to settle on one set of numbers and decide to give an example.
That's a small number in Venango, but yet we only have 55,000 people.
Right. So
that's a pretty good percentage of those.
I think it is too, and it's $144 million a year in expenditures. Now, the net impact of all four of the region, is 63,000 hunters.